Walter White didn't die. This theory claims that Walter White walked away from the finale alive. In Felina, he collapses after being hit by a stray bullet, but the camera fades out before we ever see a body bag or funeral. Fans argue the cops arrived just in time for medical attention, and with all that drug money hidden, Walt could have cut a deal or vanished. Some even point to creator interviews teasing ambiguity and the idea that Walt gets away with it in a twisted sense. Nothing is confirmed, but the lack of a definitive death scene keeps this theory cooking strong. Bikini Bottom is a nuclear test site. This theory flips SpongeBob SquarePants from silly to sinister. Bikini Bottom isn't just a cute underwater town, it's the aftermath of Cold War nuclear testing. The name isn't subtle. Bikini Atoll was the site of over 20 U.S. atomic detonations between 1946 and 1958. Fans argue the radiation mutated sea life into talking, job-holding weirdos who live in human-style houses and drive boats underwater. Even the technology looks mid-century, as if frozen in time after the blasts. Writers have even hinted this was intentional, turning SpongeBob's world into a bizarre post-apocalyptic society hiding in plain sight. The Upside Down is the future. This theory flips everything you know about Stranger Things. It claims the Upside Down isn't an alternate dimension at all. It's Hawkins in a post-apocalyptic future. The dead vines, crumbling buildings, and frozen clock all hint at a world where time stopped. Some fans say nuclear devastation or a catastrophic event wiped out humanity, leaving only monsters like the Demogorgon to roam. Even Eleven's powers might be tied to experiments trying to fix the timeline. Homer is in a coma. According to this theory, Homer Simpson has been in a coma since 1993, and that explains everything. Fans believe the show's wild plots, bizarre celebrity cameos, and complete lack of aging all started after a season 4 episode where Homer ends up in the hospital. Before that, stories were grounded. After that, who knows? The idea is that everything since has been Homer's dream world, where time doesn't exist and logic doesn't either. While the writers never confirmed it, it is entirely possible. Evil Morty is the original Morty. This theory claims Evil Morty isn't just another version. He's the very first Morty. Fans argue that his deep hatred for Rick's comes from years of abandonment and betrayal, making him the blueprint for every other Morty. His superior intelligence and cold demeanor hint at experience far beyond the average sidekick. The iconic reveal in Close Rick Counters of the Rick kind only fueled the fire, with subtle clues tying him back to Rick C-137's original family. Toby is the Scranton Strangler. This theory argues that the mild-mannered HR guy from The Office is secretly the Scranton Strangler. Fans point out that Toby served on the jury for the case, but later doubted the conviction, almost like he knew the wrong man went down. His obsession with the trial, his nervous demeanor, and his desperate need for control fit the profile. He's also eerily absent during key Strangler incidents, and when he visits the convicted man in prison, he gets choked, maybe a twisted form of self-punishment. The island is a spaceship. This theory blasts Lost into sci-fi territory by claiming the island is actually an alien spaceship. Fans point to its bizarre electromagnetic energy, teleportation, and ability to move across the globe as proof it's not natural. The mysterious hieroglyphs, ancient statues, and even the whispers in the jungle could all be remnants of extraterrestrial tech. Some theorists go further, suggesting Jacob and the Man in Black aren't mystical beings, but guardians of advanced alien machinery. Breaking Bad caused The Walking Dead. This crossover theory claims Breaking Bad and The Walking Dead share the same universe, and that Walter White's blue meth triggered the zombie outbreak. Fans noticed Merle Dixon carrying a bag of blue crystals early in the series, and Glenn later drives a car identical to the one Walt gave his son. There's even a character who describes a dealer named Heisenberg. The theory suggests the drug's chemical makeup mutated into a virus that spiraled out of control. Both shows share producers, which only fuels speculation. Harry's code never existed. This theory claims Harry never gave Dexter a code at all. It was Dexter's own invention to justify killing. Think about it. Every flashback we see is filtered through Dexter's narration, making them the least reliable evidence. If the code never actually came from Harry, then Dexter's entire sense of purpose crumbles into a coping mechanism. Harry might have noticed Dexter's darkness but never endorsed murder, which would explain why Harry killed himself in the show. Guilt over failing his son, not overtraining him. It reframes Harry's death as tragic, not complicit, and makes Dexter a pure architect of his own moral code, a delusion that allowed him to feel righteous while committing serial murder. Michael was dead after season 1. This theory claims Michael Scofield never made it out alive, and everything after season 1 is his dying dream. Fans argue the evidence is in the tone shift. The first season is sharp and grounded, but from season 2 on, the story spirals into improbable twists, global conspiracies, and near superhuman stunts. Characters cheat death in ways that feel cinematic rather than realistic, almost like Michael's fantasy of becoming a legend rather than a man in a cell. Even his romantic arc with Sarah fits the mold of a perfect ending scenario that dying minds often conjure. If true, every twist in later seasons stops being random chaos and becomes symbolic of Michael's will to live, as his consciousness flickers out behind bars. Homelander will become president. This theory argues that The Boys is setting up Homelander to trade his cape for the Oval Office. Fans point to his growing obsession with public image and the way Vought spins his every atrocity into a patriotic moment. He's already more influencer than hero, using fear and charm like a politician. Season by season, his language shifts from violent threats to patriotic speeches, priming the audience within the show to accept him as a leader rather than a liability. Combine that with Stormfront's lingering ideology and the slow normalization of his cruelty, and you've got the perfect blueprint for authoritarian takeover. The comics even explore a similar storyline, fueling speculation that the show will follow suit. With Stormfront's ideology lingering and his fan base worshipping him, the leap from superhero to dictator in disguise feels terrifyingly plausible. The whole show is in Elliot's head. This theory argues that Mr. Robot never leaves Elliot's mind, and every character, every twist, is just a fragment of his fractured psyche. Fans point to his dissociative identity disorder as the smoking gun. Mr. Robot isn't the only alter. Darlene, Angela, maybe even the entire Society crew could be constructs created to process trauma. Scenes full of dream logic, people appearing out of nowhere, timing that never adds up, start to look less like cinematic flair and more like symptoms of a mind unraveling. The big twist about Elliot's mastermind personality in the finale becomes less of a shock and more of a confirmation that layers of fiction have been masking the truth all along. It turns the entire series into a psychological labyrinth instead of a hacker drama. Every Black Mirror episode shares the same universe. This theory claims Black Mirror isn't an anthology at all. It's one twisted timeline. Fans have spotted Easter eggs everywhere. The Prime Minister from the national anthem appears in news tickers years later. San Junipero becomes a tech service name-dropped in Black Museum, and even fictional brands like Harlech Shadow recur across episodes. Other links include the symbol of the white bear reappearing in government propaganda, and tech like the mass implant system appearing in separate stories decades apart, implying a continuous escalation of surveillance and control. The timeline suggests a progression from early scandals and social media obsessions to AI consciousness and digital afterlives, painting a world slowly collapsing under its own technology. Creator Charlie Brooker has teased the connections but never fully confirmed them. 001 is Gi-hun's father. This theory suggests that Il-nam, the old man in Squid Game, is secretly Gi-hun's father. Fans point to subtle clues. They both love the same childhood games, prefer their food the same way, and share a strangely warm connection despite being competitors. Even their conversations feel coded, like when Il-nam offers Gi-hun milk alternatives, saying, "You must have hated milk as a kid," a detail no stranger should know. Il-nam even says the neighborhood in one game looks just like where he lived with his son, which eerily matches Gi-hun's memories. The theory argues that Il-nam entered the games partly to see what became of his child before he died. If true, the final marble game becomes a devastating father-son showdown disguised as a test of morality. Tony dies in the diner scene. This theory argues the infamous cut to black in The Sopranos finale is Tony's death, shown from his perspective. Fans point to the build-up, ominous POV shots, the bell jingling every time the door opens, and that conversation about never hearing it when it happens. The camera lingers on Meadow struggling to park, creating tension as a man in a members-only jacket walks to the bathroom, just like the Godfather hit scene. Then, silence, darkness. The lack of music and abruptness aren't artistic quirks. They're the auditory void of death itself. Everything we see before that moment is Tony's hyper-awareness spiking in paranoia, only for life to end in an instant. Better Call Saul and Ozark share the same cartel. This theory claims the Navarro cartel in Ozark isn't separate. It's an extension of the Salamanca network from Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. Both operate in Mexico, both wield terrifying influence, and both rely on elaborate laundering systems in the US. The key is timing. As Gus and the Salamancas implode in the Southwest, someone had to fill that power gap. Navarro's sudden dominance lines up perfectly. Even the laundering styles echo each other. The secret bank accounts, shell companies, and lawyers pulling the strings behind the scenes. House killed his first patient. This theory claims Gregory House's legendary brilliance is haunted by a secret failure. He killed his very first patient. Not by accident, but through a reckless decision he can never take back, one that shaped his cynical worldview forever. Fans point out House's obsessive need to solve the puzzle feels more like penance than ego. Like every case is a desperate attempt to rewrite that first mistake. It would explain why House sabotages happiness, why guilt simmers beneath the sarcasm, and why pain management became addiction instead of treatment. His Vicodin habit? Not just for the leg. It's a chemical escape hatch from memories that never stop chewing at him. Sheldon is writing the entire show. This theory claims The Big Bang Theory isn't just a sitcom, it's a story Sheldon himself wrote. The proof hides in the finale. Penny jokes that someday Sheldon will write a book about all of them, and the camera lingers on his reaction just a beat too long. Fans argue that explains the show's exaggerated humor and why Sheldon dominates every storyline despite being the least socially inclined. Think about it. Every fun fact, every awkward misunderstanding, every running gag about his quirks feels like a man mythologizing his own life, polishing the edges for narrative effect. Even the title, The Big Bang Theory, could be Sheldon's idea of clever wordplay, making their personal lives sound like the origin of the universe. Will died in the fight. This theory flips the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air from a feel-good sitcom to a surreal afterlife allegory. It argues that Will never survived that one little fight in West Philly. He died, and Bel-Air isn't a mansion. It's heaven. The clues? The theme song sounds lighthearted, but its lyrics read like a metaphor for transition, leaving chaos, ascending to a better place. Uncle Phil? He's God in a sweater vest, strict but loving, guiding Will toward maturity. Jeffrey is an angel in disguise, Carlton a soul with lessons to teach, and the mansion a paradise where pain and poverty can't reach him. Every episode plays like a morality tale, preparing Will for eternal peace rather than college. The Doctor is the master in the future. This theory takes Doctor Who's biggest rivalry and flips it on its head. What if the Doctor and the Master are the same Time Lord at different points in an endless cycle? Fans argue that their connection runs deeper than friendship or enmity. Their lives mirror each other too perfectly. Both reject Gallifrey, both manipulate time for personal morality, and both flirt with chaos while preaching control. The theory suggests the Master is the Doctor's final regeneration, corrupted by centuries of compromises and loneliness, turning idealism into tyranny. It would explain why they can't truly kill each other and why their chemistry feels almost intimate, as if fighting yourself across eternity. If true, every battle isn't good versus evil. It's a tragic paradox of identity, with the Doctor unknowingly waging war against their own future. Mulder was a government plant. This theory asks, what if Fox Mulder wasn't a rogue truth seeker at all, but a carefully placed operative meant to manage the UFO narrative? Fans argue that his access to classified material, immunity from serious punishment, and uncanny ability to uncover just enough truth without ever collapsing, the conspiracy suggests orchestration. By letting Mulder chase the truth, the government controlled the flow of information, making believers look like paranoid outcasts while burying real evidence in layers of red herrings. Even his nickname, Spooky, feels like branding, a psychological tactic to frame him as eccentric, not credible. If this theory is true, Mulder's life mission wasn't rebellion, it was containment. The professor planned his own capture. This theory argues that Sergio Marquina, better known as the Professor, never intended to vanish into the shadows. Instead, his real plan was to become an untouchable legend. Fans point to the gold scheme as evidence. Melting it into tiny beads makes it practically untraceable, but also nearly useless in its raw form. The Professor repeatedly insists that the heist is about more than money. It's about resistance, about rewriting the narrative of power. What better way to do that than by orchestrating an ending where his capture becomes part of the myth? His negotiations, his calm demeanor even when cornered, and the way he lets the spotlight burn brighter with every move all hint that this was the real goal. Not just to rob Spain, but to immortalize the crew as martyrs and icons. The Seinfeld finale proves they're in hell. This theory argues that the infamous jail ending of Seinfeld wasn't just a quirky wrap-up, it was Judgment Day. Jerry, George, Elaine, and Kramer aren't unlucky. They're dead, and the finale is their eternal sentence. Think about it. Their entire run is marked by selfishness, cruelty, and indifference to others. They mock strangers, ruin relationships, and treat morality like a punchline. When the Good Samaritan law lands them in prison, it feels symbolic, a cosmic court finally holding them accountable. The kicker? Their punishment isn't fire or demons, it's each other, locked in a cell, doomed to endless bickering, telling the same jokes forever.